and it's where the money is, absolutely. And you can build a business, and you can employ people, and you can have a lot of fun, and you can keep your brain ticking over. The danger with films, if you're making one film every 3 years, by the time you're reading that film script for the 83rd time, it'd be a rare person that wasn't bored reading their own film script for the 83rd time. But having said that, we've made a couple of films, and they've both been really successful, and we do want to make some more. But my feeling at the moment is my head is kind of into sort of moderate budget genre films rather than necessarily massive, big projects. It's using probably, so a lot of the skills we've made. I mean, I think we are very good at making things and getting 95% of the money up on the screen and making it, look interesting, and doing things, like Insider's Guide and things like that have got a bit of a film quality and a bit different and things like that, and that money's gone up there. And I'd like to I think there's a danger at the moment that the film business is just getting dearer and dearer and dearer, and people are saying, well, it cost $10 million to make this script, and nobody's actually saying, but does anybody want to see this thing, and should we really spend $10 million, or would it be really cool if we made it for 2 or 3? And if you were going to make it for 2 or 3, is there another way of making it? And maybe you could make it in a different way. I don't have a big thing about the medium, whatever the medium is. I'm more interested in the story and the audience. So I kind of think if there's a potential to do things where people turn up en masse at a museum and want to have an amazing 360 experience with, we're just opening the thing at Te Papa, which is completely, it's not opened yet, but I think when people go there, they'll be really blown away by the MySpace thing, because you're uploading your own material, sending them to the museum if you want. You can take stuff from their collection, you can play with it on a wall with a wand, you can do all sorts of things. You can take someone else's media that's playing on the wall next to you, on this huge, massive video wall, utilising sort of Nintendo type game, Wii skills and things. That's interesting to me, that's a different way of going at it. And mobile phones are the same, it's just what's the method and what's the story, and doing that. And I don't care whether it's 35mm film or shot on a phone. It doesn't worry me. It doesn't kind of matter. Whatever works. There's a 90-minute sort of, I don't know what you call it, drama documentary, but it's quite different on what happens when the big earthquake hits Wellington. So that's on one night. The following night there's like a reality show based on a family and how they would survive, what you do. All wrapped around that is this massive website that'll run before and after it, in which you can log in and see what would happen to your house when the earthquake hits. So we're doing, you're doing it all the time now. There's no such thing as, they're simple little programs. Nobody should be under the illusion that people are kind of going, oh, cool, look, here's a New Zealand film. That's realistically mostly crap. They're just looking for interesting things. And New Zealand doesn't have much of a brand in that sense. The Film Commission might say otherwise, but I think even, if they had a couple of drinks, they would agree that the reality is that, it's the people making the shows and the content of the shows that people are looking for. So you're not selling New Zealand stories per se. Okay, the locations people might be selling mountains and lakes and cheap currency and, things like that. But I'm not a great believer in, they don't see, most people sitting in Idaho don't know the difference between Australia and New Zealand, if you're honest about it. But they'll turn on and watch a really interesting show that's got a good story and nicely acted and, intrigues them and things like that. Well, I like to think we've had good relationships with a lot of writers over time. I think probably in some cases because we will sometimes take on things that are quite difficult and a bit hard, and I think that's nice. And we're not that closed with writers. I think we're quite open with writers. I think we're reasonably known for saying, look, you write it and then we'll work out how to shoot it. Don't you sit there worrying about how many people are in the scene or whether they've got a big car and whether there's an explosion. You just write what kind of works. We worked with Margaret Mahy for a long time, and you have to, Margaret can write all sorts of things. Create a librarian task force that flies into this kid's bedroom and steals the library books. Yeah, sure, we can do that. We'll work out how to do it. It's not a problem. So I think that's a good thing. That I think we're quite good at just letting people, and then later on, we might go, okay, well, now we need to make it roughly the right length or whatever it is, but we can sort that out. So that's kind of cool. Well, I think that's quite a nice story because Lloyd came to us with the book and said, look, I've got this book, and maybe you guys can see a TV show. And I'm completely honest, we had a kind of almost a slightly awkward relationship with Lloyd for about 2 years, 18 months, where I kept saying to him, look, I really love this book. I cannot work out what to do with it. We talked to a few people, we had creative meetings, we didn't come up with it. And it was only in one meeting finally where we were talking to someone, and someone just said, looked at the book, first time they'd ever seen it, opened it, turned 3 pages and went, it's a quiz show. And I thought, how stupid am I? Like, you've got a book about fats, of course it's a quiz show, But then we made another jump with someone else, where we were sitting there and we went, you know what, it's a quiz show that's made by a 14-year-old boy, or made the way a 14-year-old boy would make it. And that was like the next jump, But I mean, thank God Lloyd, was happy enough. He didn't, we didn't have to offer him some really complex financial deal. He just said, look, I'm sure you guys, if anyone can come up with it, you can, have a go. And then finally, after 2 years, I was able to say, oh, Lloyd, now we can do a deal, because now we know what to do. Look, I'm an advocate for the politics of the industry. There's no question about that. I think people like me and John Barnett and Vincent Burke, there are people that have always been, prepared to do those sort of things, and I'm really happy to do them. And I kind of don't approve of people who just, truck along and do their own thing and never contribute to that. And I think we have an obligation to speak out about things, and we have an obligation to lobby. Governments and networks and things like that, and a lot of the great successes have come from industry lobbies. Things like New Zealand On Air wouldn't exist in the form that it is today, doing the things that it does, if it weren't for 4 or 5 key industry players, sitting in a room at the Ministry of Commerce or whatever it was with a whiteboard saying, why don't you set up the organisation to do this? You don't just have to give a cheque to TVNZ. You could actually have this competitive funding situation, involving TV3 and other networks, and the producers put things up, and it works and it's helpful, and I think people should do it and have an obligation to do it, and it can be kind of draining, but it can be fun too.